Just going to hand over to Myra. I'm going to let her introduce herself because she knows what she's going to do, and I've been looking forward to this all week. So
well,
over to you, Myra.
I thought what I would mainly do is just show some pictures and say a bit about them, so we can see, people can see the different types of art that comes under the so-called psychic art umbrella, if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute. One I do want to show you is still on the wall, because that's important. Just a second. And we'll just plug it in. Okay, so everybody's basically heard about spirit portraits, and for most people that is psychic art and nothing else. I prefer not to call spirit portraits psychic art. You don't, with living people, you don't say, oh, it's just art. You do say the word portraits in it. So that's what I like to do. I've seen faces in things ever since I was very small, and I remember laying in bed with a big oak tree outside, and all these gnome-like faces looking at me when I was about 6, 7 years old, and being absolutely terrified of all these faces, because I knew that they could see me and I could see them, but I didn't have an adult who I could talk to at that time. I also started seeing spirit about the same time, people spirits and animals. So although they were quite clear then, I did go through a period for a few years afterwards where I didn't see anything, which was probably just as well, because I had enough to deal with the physical life. But as time went on, and I did qualify as a commercial artist in the States, with the art instruction schools of Minneapolis, I then got to the stage where, when I was seeing spirit people at church services and things, and I thought, well, why don't I try and draw them for the medium who's doing the messages? This was before I became a medium myself. And so I started doing that with some quite interesting results. I know at Rickmansworth, we had one service and I drew a man, and the message recipient was sitting behind me. I gave her the picture afterwards and she didn't know who it was. She went away, she looked through her photo albums, and the next week's service she came back, and just take these off. She showed me a photograph of her father when he was 30, recovering from war wounds during the war, before she was born. And you would have thought that I had actually done a drawing of that photograph. It was just so similar. And we did discover that over time, when spirits showed me themselves, quite often they weren't necessarily showing themselves, but they were projecting an image of a photograph. And it had to be, because their clothing, jewelry, etc., was absolutely identical as in the photograph, which I found quite interesting. Other times when I was doing the portraits, you'd suddenly get them turn, if you were drawing the left side, they'd suddenly turn and show you the right side, almost as a, well, I think I'd rather have my portrait done this way, which could be infuriating, especially if you were on a time limit thing, because I generally have worked with another medium, and the other medium doing the clairvoyance while I do the drawings, because I find you are using totally different parts of your brain for doing clairvoyance as you are for doing artwork. I know some artists been lucky and they say, oh, spirit does the drawing for them. They just guide their hand, but I believe my lot in the main reckon I'm a qualified artist, get on with it sort of thing. And that's fine. If there are times, and there have been many over the years, that the spirit person who's I started drawing suddenly isn't there anymore, then I do very quietly in my mind yell for spirit help. Come on, guys, where does this go? And I then sort of see like a very faint outline on the page where the drawing goes, which I think is quite interesting. What I will show you is, because we're not here to just talk about portraits, we'll do those in a minute, but I want to start off with showing you the first thing I saw literally floating across the front of the platform at Watford Christian Spiritualist Church in the old building. And say they've moved out of there in '89, so it's going back into the 70s. And I saw this floating across the front and I thought, oh, that's pretty. Then it dawned on me afterwards I had to do something about it. And this is what it was. Just the cross. I'll get it closer so you can see a bit of the design on it. Little flowers. And it took a while. I did make it up, and there's a piece of ply in there cut with the shape of the cross out, all covered in felt material, with then the silk over the top, which the painting bit is actually done on silk and all stretched over. And we did it up with batteries, but I'm not an electrician. And after a while, the batteries and the whole casing dropped out. And I asked a friend who knew about electrics to somehow do it up so it could be plugged in. Well, he had it for 20 years and it never got done. And then about a year ago, I was in Lidl and they had string lights, and I thought, right, I can do something like that. So I made up the frame on the back, because you see it's all screwed in now, but it can be unscrewed to get the lights, and you can see from the edge probably the light showing just through slightly. And much to my delight, it worked. So I was pleased about that. And as I say, that was the first one I saw that spirit showed already done as a piece of artwork. Over the years, that was to become more and more. But I'm mostly known within our mediumistic circles just as a portrait artist. Now, some of the portraits done recently, I'll just show you. That was for a lady called Sue Ellis. You may have heard of her. She's with the Windsor group. It's another gentleman. A lady. And another lady. Now, those were all done over one evening for the same recipient. which is quite unusual, but it was one of like a fledglings evening, and people were having a chance to go, and a lot of them, the messages went to that recipient, because normally when I work, whoever the medium has gone to is the same person who will get the drawing. Not always, but 90% of the cases it is. I started out doing the portraits with the help of a very experienced medium within the Institute of Spiritualist Mediums, Peggy Goodwin, who you may have know about, and see Bill's nodding there. I think Bill and Mary, we know some of the same people because we were in the same area about the same time. And initially, when I started out with Peggy, I got the pictures first, and then she found who the recipient was. And one day, I believe we were doing one of the Luton churches, and she said to me that Spirit had been talking to her and had said that we've got to do it the other way around, with her finding the recipient, and then I would be shown who to draw it. So that was fine, and we worked, and it worked like that for a long time. And I was at that point seeing all the spirit people whose portrait needed doing just as clear as what I'm seeing you, which is lovely, but it means in the flesh it takes a bit longer to do. So I started to ask Spirit if, when they want me to do the portraits, could I see them on the floor in black and white? So it was quicker then to do all the shading and all that side of things, which did speed things up a bit. Because at that time, I mean, I started out just doing small A5 size, and then went up to A4, but decided really it would be better in pastels, in like sepia tones, which is what I did for many years. And I still do if I'm demonstrating in public with an audience and I've got working with a medium. I've just done the pencil ones recently again, because of working over Zoom and wanting to do it quicker and quicker, because a A3 picture takes about 8 or 9 minutes. When you're doing it with fledglings, they may not be able to hold a message for that long a time. So consequently, it had to be sped up. So smaller pictures in pencil was the way forward to speed up the doing of them. And it works. I'm going to show you just some other ones now. And I've got a very big book here. That's the first one, isn't it? Yes. But I'll show you him out of the small book, because I've got a photo in the small book also of him. This gentleman, he was a relative of Mick Beattie, who used to attend the Watford Church, and we always did clairvoyance and psychic art evening. I think it was either the first teaching evening of the year or the last, and they were able to get a photograph of him, which is just there. It's still very small, isn't it? But I think you can probably see the likeness there. Okay. That was, it is lovely when people send you a photo afterwards, then you can confirm, but the majority of people don't. This was another recent one done. As you can see her. Very nice looking lady. Let's just see if I've got another one in here with a photo. It's not very good though with the photo. It's a vicar who was somebody's relative. and I'll show you the photo. Can you see him? Yeah. Lovely. This is the Beatties one again, because this is a big portfolio, which this one was done some time ago. There's the lady, and there's her photo. There's a gent that was done. Unfortunately, I don't have a photo of him. And this was an interesting one. There's the lady. Now, the recipient didn't recognize her immediately, because the last time that she had seen this lady, the lady was in perfect health and absolutely, more flesh on her face. And then near the end of her life, she did lose a lot of the flesh and became quite gaunt-like. Now, you'll all have heard of Coral Polge. I was lucky enough to get a drawing from Coral. This is one that she did. She works totally different. Coral never saw the picture, never saw the spirit person. She felt from the inside and drew that way. She also worked with somebody else doing the clairvoyance. But she also took longer time because it just worked that way with the type she did. You can see the difference from seeing that. She also was a qualified artist. The funny thing is, when I was doing art and making my living at art, I never did portraits. Did animal portraits, yes, landscapes and all sorts of other things, but never human portraits. So it was interesting that it was almost like spirit saving that side up until we started working from the spirit side of things. This one is an angel that I saw. That's, what was her name? I think Sue something. A friend's angel. And this one, painted in emulsions and acrylics. This is the angel that I work with a lot. And there's a little story with that one. When I and my partner moved to North Devon, we decided we were going to put in a third little bathroom, toilet and hand basin near the garage, which we did. And the plumber said to me, right, I'm coming in 3 days' time, so if you want to decorate it in there, do it now while there's no fittings in there, so it's easier. So I decided I was going to do angels looking at each other, and I was going to do my angel. Her name is Myra, and did like her on one end, another angel that I sort of made up facing her on the other wall, and clouds and different things, smaller angels flying in between. And lots of people who visited that house were very keen to go in, see the angel toilet, if you like. Except we had one person who, although we had 3 toilets in the house at that time, 2 of them were in use. We had a group of people around, and we said to him, well, you're going to have to go and use the one by the garage. And he came back and he said, no, I can't go in there. there's people looking at me. The fact that, you know, they were just paintings, nevertheless, he was not keen to go in there. Okay. I've also done some portraits of guides for people. This is one. And it's, those of you who are mediums will know that when a guide comes close, somebody else's guide, it's a totally different feel from when you get an ordinary relative or friend from the spirit world coming close. This one belonged to a lady called Jean Alsop, who is passed to spirit now. But she was very happy with him, because these are colour photocopies. The people have got the originals. And guide of somebody else who was at Watford Church. I did do another one for someone, and it appeared on the front of the book that they wrote, but unfortunately I don't have a copy of it anywhere. And now we're going to just forget portraits for a moment and go on to auragraphs. According to Harry Boddington in the University of Spiritualism, an aura is an electromagnetic field that surrounds you. And we know that it's got lots of colour in, and the colours can be, well, each colour has its own meaning. So initially, this was how I saw the auras swirling around. Now, obviously, I'm looking at the front of the person, so I'm not seeing the whole circle of the colour. There was another one that I did at that time. This is a lady called Jean, who lives in Cambourne in Cornwall, and she chaired at the Cambourne Spiritualist Church. And her hair really did look like that. She was known locally as Mad Jean because of her personality and her hairstyle. But you can see she was chairing, and you can see the purple, the net denoting the spirituality, and the blue there and the pinks in there, you know, which are all of interest, because she's such a people person. And you know the song "Let There Be Peace on Earth"? They had it always as their ending to each meeting, and she would have everybody hold hands, and they had to sway in union with each other. And if they weren't doing it right, she would stop, and everybody had to start again. And because it was Mad Jean, it was just her character, you know, it was accepted, whereas some people may not have got away with it. Right, let's there's just a couple. When you're walking, you're in normal mode, your aura will look something like that. But when you're opened up to spirit, it's more like that. So, where's the ones I want? These pictures here were done. Tony Bain was the medium, and again, Bill and Mary, you might know Tony. He too has sadly passed. Well, not sadly, he's worked all his life for spirit, so I expect he was quite happy to go. This was him working on platform. You can see the almost like funnel type openings around his aura where he was connecting to the spirit people. At the time, Jeff was chairing for him, and his aura as chairperson, we looked totally different because he was keeping the calm and keeping a look on what was going on with the congregation or audience, which I thought that was quite interesting. The two huge variations from platforms, people on the platform at the same time. And that was another one I saw. Right, that's that one out of the way. What have we got next? Spirit-inspired artwork. Now, the picture I showed you at the beginning with the cross, that is what I would call definitely spirit-inspired, because they composed it. I just copied it and put it onto the silk and made a picture out of it. Let's just... This one, Ron Hawksworth was doing a seminar one day at the church, and while I was waiting in there, we were doing meditation, and I saw this, the cross, the white background, and people get on the steps leading up to heaven. What I found particularly of interest in this, and it doesn't really seem to show up very well, that the clouds and the person at the top and the doves and things that are flying around in the clouds are very much in the style of Michelangelo. And yet the actual whole thing, with a very modern looking cross on a white background, is very modern, and mixing the two different styles I thought was quite interesting. At the same time, I was reading a book by Stephen O'Brien, Voices from Heaven, and one of the paragraphs in that book seemed to almost describe this picture, and I'll read it to you. It says, "I took a deep breath. It all starts with a pillar of golden light set against a background of deep space and twinkling stars. There's no end to this golden column, which stretches from earth to heaven, and there are hundreds of sad-looking people walking endlessly around it, in a mindless procession leading nowhere. Then," and my mother leaned forward as I went on, "a deep voice says to me, 'This is a circle of life.' Then suddenly the people discover a gap in the pillar, and inside there's a broad golden staircase ascending. They quickly start to climb it. As the voice says, they are moving onwards and upwards into the light." So, to me, that just describes that picture very well. Another one that they showed me, do you remember there was a lot of publicity? What year was that? 1985, about that time, about the droughts and the starvation that was going on in Ethiopia. And this was shown to me in meditation. Again, spirit inspired. They compose it. I just see it and get all the color notations quickly written down and get it painted as soon as possible. Almost, you know, with it like desert underneath and the red hot blazing sun. And then, of course, the one you can see behind me. This one, to me, is indicative of either reincarnation, going through the different lives until one becomes purified and meeting the Godhead, And the circles, they're just symbolic, because I'm sure people take more than 5 or 6 lifetimes to get to that. Or one can put it in as one's ordinary spiritual evolvement through life, depending on one's point of view. But at the Godhead bit, there's lots of little sparks coming off. There's new life and new ideas going forth. And again, this one was particularly interesting because this is how they showed it. Yet if you were to look at a rainbow with the same colours in it, the colours are the opposite way round. The reds are at the top of the rainbow, the blues at the bottom. But I like it. This one we can put different ways, and if you stand it up that way, you get a totally different perspective of it. So, gosh, this book is so heavy. This is one in fact, I'm going to take this one out to show you, because this was one I was shown. This was in a dream. And I woke up, and I always have paper and pencil by the bed, as many of you do. And I immediately got the colours down. And although it shows a cross, the cross is just symbolic of anything. It's whatever pathway you take leads to the same place, i.e. the spirit world. And we've got there the blue on one side for humanity and healing, and the orange and yellows on the other side for aspiration and knowledge. But one of the interesting things with this is if you turn it upside down, again, it looks totally different, doesn't it? It's also, I did deliberately put some people, 3 people in the, can't see them very well on this, in the clouds, but people have said that they see others there. You can see groups of people on that side. And on this one, somebody told me they saw Jesus in there, but I think that's how they perceived it. I'm not sure that he actually is in there. But again, I find it interesting the fact that, you know, it just doesn't happen. There are other things in these pictures, and you don't always see them all at the same time. Just put that up. I think we'll just hold up because that book is so heavy. This is one that they showed a few years ago of the underworld, symbolic of the lower astral. And although there is an angel in there giving light, the people just are not seeing her. It's shown very simply because just as sort of like in the dark under the earth as opposed to above the earth. And to prove that they don't just do crosses, which obviously they don't, but this one was shown to me quite a long time ago, but I never did get round to putting it into paint, but we did do it in pastels. The hands there holding the light is coming off the Buddha figure. Another one that they've done, which I call either Hands of Light or Starlight. And as you can see, this one's got the 6-pointed star there in the middle, which is used as a very important part of the White Eagle work. Just have a drink. Then we come to a form of art. It's called precipitated paintings. And these were mostly done in the East Coast area of the United States. The Lilydale Museum has got a great many of these, and you can see them if you go onto the Lilydale website. It was the Bang sisters and the Campbell brothers that did them. They would literally have maybe a room full of people as audience. The mediums would go into like a trance state. They would have a big canvas there and some paints, but generally no brushes. And as the people watched, so the picture built up, because it was done in light enough daylight so they could see them. This one was a full height, life-size portrait that was done. And the Campbell brothers were the mediums at this time. And I'll read you what one of the attendees said about it. The person, the portrait of the person, his name is Azure. On the evening mentioned, we met at the cottage of the Campbell brothers on the hill and proceeded to their Egyptian seance room. Across the bay window at the end of the room was hung a large silk curtain where stood a small table and a canvas 40 inches by 60 inches. Each one in turn went up to the canvas and magnetized it by passing his hands over the surface. We then placed whatever marks we pleased on the back, some placing names, some numbers, some marks to suit their fancy. Mr. A. Campbell then invited one of the circle to sit with him in the impromptu cabinet and the silken curtain enclosing them. Each member of the circle in turn sat within the cabinet with Mr. Campbell. Every time the curtain was withdrawn, we saw the partly finished picture of Azure. During the entire seance, there was light enough for us to see everything perfectly and note the gradual growth of the painting on the canvas. Mr. A. Campbell was entranced, and Azure, using his organism, gave us some very beautiful words of welcome and lessons of a high order. He spoke of the stars and their significance, which we fully realized afterwards. After some music, additional lights were brought, the curtain was drawn, and lo, the picture was complete. It represented Azure with arms uplifted as if in the act of speaking and fully life-size. While we were admiring it, there came at the back of the head a 6-pointed star, which is now distinctly seen. If you can see the star, not really showing up that well, but you can see the faint outline of it. Okay. But they used a cabinet. From what I've read and can understand, the Bang sisters, who were about the same time, they didn't. Their canvas was just out and they were like sitting together on the stage. this is this particular painting isn't at Lilydale. It's held at another place called Camp Chesterfield. You can see this lady, beautiful portrait. And scientists have looked at these portraits and they cannot determine what the medium is. It's almost like coloured chalk was dropped carefully in position and then solidified once on the canvas. The description of this picture is, through the mediumship of Lizzie and May Bangs, this portrait of Ethel Heldel of Peru, Indiana, was precipitated in the presence of her parents, David and Rose Heldel, and an old friend, Emil Schramm. Ethel is wearing her graduation dress. When the portrait was finished, her father asked why she was not wearing his graduation gift to her, which was a necklace. And the necklace then instantly appeared, according to witnesses present. And here's another of a lady called Nora in her, also looks like a graduation dress. But I mean, they're like photographs, aren't they? They're amazing. Now, I believe this one was, her eyes were closed when the picture was done. And her parents sort of said to Spirit, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks after the portrait was completed, why wasn't she shown with her eyes open? And as they watched, the eyes opened and remained opened. It is pretty impressive. It really is. In England, there are a few precipitated paintings, but they're held up in a church up in Yorkshire area somewhere. Unfortunately, I don't know the real one. And I believe there's one in Petersfield. No, not Petersfield, Portsmouth, at the Temple of Light there. There were a few miscellaneous. This one was just a gathering at, where was it? Watford Spiritualist Church at a Christmas gathering. And this is what I was seeing. This huge star at the top, lots of cloud-like areas on the roof above the people. When we're sitting in our groups, we just don't comprehend that there's all this going on above us and around us. It is amazing. It's like the drawings done by Leadbeater, where he shows churches and where people are singing hymns all together and all these wonderful colours that are above. This was another form of so-called psychic art, spirit art. This was done by Brenda White. It's just literally pastels. It wasn't done by Brenda White, it was done by me. And Brenda gave an interpretation and got an awful lot of information about me from this. And this is an exercise I still use within the circle today. I will ask them to take 3 colours, and I provide the pastels, and just fill a page with them, and mix them, merge, whatever they want with those 3 colours. And you get some very interesting readings from it. This is a picture of a lady in North Devon who we used to go and give healing to. There she is sitting in her chair. She was nearly 90 at the time. And behind her at one time I saw these semi-lucid figures of her spirit guides or angels or relatives that were behind. We called them angels for her because that's how she perceived they would be called. But you can almost see a very quick sketch, like totally different to others, but just to give the impression in her living room of what was going on there. This one was done, it's called The Healing. It was done to show what I see when people are receiving healing. You've got at one end the human healer with his guide behind him, with his hands on the shoulders, and all these angels, and also the lights and the rays that come out of their hands and the solar plexus, which gives the healing. Now, the gentleman who said he would act as model for this, we used to run healing sessions at the local cottage hospital in North Devon, and this gentleman, he came to us, he was absolutely riddled with cancer, and there was no way that he was able to get better. However, he received a great deal of comfort from the healing, and he wanted to be the model for this picture, which I thought was quite nice because it almost gives a long-term inheritance, or whatever the word would be for him, memory. This is another one seen in meditation. Lots of huge guides, all pointing towards the earth. As you can see there, the rays going out to heal the earth. No, I do think, you know, for those that meditate, that if you can draw some of what you see in meditation, it does make it particularly interesting. And I think that's probably come to the end of what we've got. Ah, no. Just going back to autographs again. This one was done of me many years ago, totally different to how I do it. And character things within the different things, lollipops coming out, which I was informed were the different guides or helpers. And that came with a 3/4 of an hour reading on tape, which delved into things extremely in extreme detail. I wouldn't have liked anybody else to have heard it. And just another couple on the auras, and then I'm going to, this is one that I saw of myself in the meditation we did once. And we'll end with just something that I was given from Spirit on the aura. This is my guide. We do a lot of inspirational writing. And it said, it's called Oracally Speaking. Oracle perfection, you, me, everyone and everything. The blessed light of God shining out, showing and demonstrating the beauty of love within each and every being. Your fingerprint on the universe and on all life. The colors are chapters of experiences and feelings, showing to all who you really are and reflecting to all who they are. The highest and supremest demonstration of unity is ultimately that aura is a reflection and demonstration of the divine unifying all in love. God within, God without, all encompassing. Recognize that which is the true you. Accept your divinity as others who see you in all your auric beauty do, and know that through your aura you are joined to and are an intrinsic part of the great creative spirit whole. And I think that's pretty special, and it certainly makes us think of that is how spirit want us to see and be. And it's pretty special to me. And I think basically I've come to the end of what I've brought to show you this evening.
Right. Thank you very much for that. Some people would like to ask some questions to Myra.
You just put your hand up and we'll unmute you.
Right, Neil. Right, let's undo Neil.
Well, Neil's an artist too, aren't you, Neil?
Yep, indeed. So I was watching with great interest. I've tried, because people think that I do psychic art, but I don't. I just paint from photographs of a reference. But I did go on a psychic art workshop with Bill, and I forget his surname, which I thought was very interesting. And I also tried to learn the basics of it, but I never really carried on with it. But I do study mediumship, so I would expect that I would have kind of steered in that spirit art kind of direction, but I never have. I'm not really bothered by it, really. I'm quite happy painting the way I'm painting, but that's just comments about it. But I do remember seeing a demonstration of a psychic artist, and this was on the Arthur C. Clarke program many years ago, Mysterious World, and I think it took place at the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain. That's how I found out about it, through that program. And I think it was a Brazilian artist, and of course this was 35 plus years ago, so I can't remember the name of him. But what I found that he did was quite interesting. I think he was doing pastels, and he was channeling, for want of a better word, one spirit, if you like, who was an artist on Earth at some point, and he was drawing a picture with his right hand of that particular artist, and at the same time he was channeling another spirit who was drawing a completely different picture with his left hand, and he was doing two different styles completely, and they both came out looking really different, and it blew my mind to watch it, actually.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you've ever seen or heard of anything like that at all yourself.
I've heard of it, but I've not had the opportunity to see anything like that. There must be incredibly good trance mediums to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, because the energy that's coming into that guy, you know, it must take him over completely. And he's just completely out of it, and must wake up and see these two pictures he's done and think, my God, you know.
Yes, I know there's several artists who do through channeled, and there's lots that say, well, spirit take their hand, and they do it all. And I'm thinking, well, lucky them. Sometimes I wish that would happen, but, you know, it's not to be. But as I said earlier, I never used to do portraits. It was only after starting to do them with spirit that I started doing them more and more.
Right.
And still, when I get commissions and things, it tends to be animal portraits.
Yeah. People love their animals, which is nice. I've done a fair few of those as well. The sisters you were talking about that put these pictures...
The Bang.
How's that pronounced?
The Bang sisters, B-A-N-G.
The Bang, are they American or English?
Yes, American.
American. The Bang.
You see, up in the top of the state of New York and near the Great Lakes, there's supposed to be a lot of special atmosphere there. Whether it's because of the Great Lakes or not, we don't know. But there's a lot of very good mediumship in that area, or where they started. I mean, Hydesville wasn't, you know, that far from there, so it's just one of those things. And the precipitated art, especially with the Campbell brothers and the Bang sisters, is that, well, I find it absolutely amazing. I'd love to see it done.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. So I know that Jane Roberts, who, I don't know if you're aware of Jane Roberts, she channeled the entity Seth. Now, she is from Elmira, out of New York. I don't know where that is in relation to where you're talking.
Seth, but I haven't heard of her.
Yeah, Jane Roberts was the medium for Seth, and she came from
right.
Elmira. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, and I think it was just outside of New York. Whether that was that same area where these lakes are, I don't know. But
because there's certain energies in these places. It's the same with the Bermuda Triangle. It's supposedly special energies there that cause the things to happen, just as it is in that particular area of the States.
It could be. I mean, it's the same with the idea of recording spirit audio onto tape recorders, and they've been told to stand near running water. Yes. Whether that helps generate the energy or not, I don't know, but it could be the same thing with the lakes, perhaps. That's interesting.
When you're sitting in materialization trances and stuff, there's always water there.
Yeah.
They say they want, the guides say they must have water.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you.
Mediumship and stuff.
Thanks very much. Very interesting.
Oops.
Oh. Leslie, in a minute. Okay. All right. In a minute, Leslie. I just want to say what Neil was saying about doing these two portraits together. I was lucky enough to go on a course at Cober Hill with Lynn Cottrell, and she did portraits in trance within 5 minutes, and they were absolutely perfect. And I was lucky enough on the last evening to go on platform with her, and she was doing the drawing when I had to do the clairvoyance. And I was, anybody that know me, that I always go in like this and everything, and she was in trance, and I knocked her, and the board of the, her painting sort of went like that, and the whole of the church went quiet, and I thought I'd killed her, to be fair, because she just was like that. But within a few minutes, she just picked up a pencil, put it back there, our spirit, and she carried on as normal. And I felt absolutely horrified. And I lived to tell the tale, and I kept apologising, but she said, "Oh, it's all right, don't worry." And because she was disturbed and she was in trance, they were still perfect, and they got the right recipients and everything, didn't it? It was
amazing.
It was really good. So I don't know. I did lots of different sorts of artwork on her thing, and it was really interesting. I'd like to go again, but.
I used to find with the spirit-inspired ones that I would do one, and they would not show me another one until I had completed the first one.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
So, yeah.
Right, Leslie wants to say something.
Yeah. Just unmute you, Leslie.
That's it.
Okay. In Finland, one of my friends, Anna-Maja, does art work. She works completely in the dark, and her circles sit with her. And she does two portraits at the same time, which are totally different. She also does work with ink. She puts a blob of ink in the middle of a piece of paper, and you think that's such a small blob. What on earth is that going to be? And it is a lovely spirit portrait of a guide for one of the people within the circle, from just a tiny little blob of coloured ink.
Maybe you could get her to come and do it in front of us one day.
I've asked her to do that, but she's a teacher, and no, it's not very keen to come away. One of the things that I get a lot of, and you did mention it just at one time, is and I've had since I was a child, as you said, and that is, you said about the gnomes. I see people everywhere.
Yeah.
I can look at a carpet or a wooden floor or a wall or a glass, and I'm surrounded by people, but I don't have the capacity to, or the artistic bent to put that down onto paper.
Yes, but they like to show themselves. And I do find when I'm doing the portraits sometimes from something on the floor, and you've got such a crowd of people there, and they're all vying to be the most noticeable of the group, which to make it difficult to see sometimes.
Yes, very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd just like to pick up on one thing actually. It's the spirit portraits, you know, when they're a bit like a photograph. Because when I did the talk about EVPs last month, I mentioned a film, and towards the end of that film, there's a chap that does psychic photography. And what they find, you know, he just stares at the camera with, you know, that's got nothing on it, a digital camera. And these, when they look back at afterwards, you know, these images appear, and quite often they're like a photograph of somebody in particular, very similar, but some of the features are slightly different. You know, they're, you know, like the ear might be slightly bigger and stuff like that. And I was just wondering when you do the artwork, if you feel that sort of thing happening with your work, or is it all exactly the same?
Sometimes when they are projecting a picture of themselves rather than being there, I find that quite often that's as a mirror image. That's how they see themselves in the mirror when they were in the physical. So the hair parting might be on the different side, or, you know.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. Do the ages tend to differ a lot? You know, do you feel drawn to any particular time in which people want to show themselves?
No, you know, as I said at the beginning about the lady's father who was in the war, he was showing himself as from a photograph that was taken from before she was born. Some like to show themselves as a lot younger. Others like to show themselves as just previous, say in the last year or two of their life. And I think it depends more on identification purposes. I mean, I've got a son who grew up in spirit. He was stillborn, and I saw him at different stages. And so I've known he's grown up, but you hear a lot of mediums who will say, well, there's a baby been in spirit and this sort of thing. And that baby may have been in spirit for 30 or 40 years, but they're still showing it as a baby because that's how the recipient is remembering them.
Yeah.
But in fact, they grow up. And I've done portraits of my son at different ages, which is, you know, nice for me because I can't get a photo of him. But it is nice to get the portraits. And he would be in his early 40s now, by Earth time.
Yeah, I think if I was in the spirit world, I'd like to come back with a bit more hair.
You may have had more when you were a child.
Has anybody else got any questions? Put your hand up.
Bill.
Bill has. You just unmute you, Bill.
Oh, his picture's gone.
Oh.
Where's he gone? I think he's pressed the wrong thing.
Let me just go and get another.
I can't see what I'm doing half the time these days.
Oh, right.
Oh, I've lost everybody's picture.
No.
Right, put that on.
Ah, there you are.
Right, there. Am I back?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah.
And I'm unmuted, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hello. Did you actually get to Lilydale?
No, I would like to go over there, but I've never had the opportunity.
Well, we were lucky enough to go to visit Lilydale, and we went to the museum where they'd got a lot of the precipitated paintings there. And funny story, when we went in there was one of Abraham Lincoln that was done, I don't know if it was the Campbell brothers did it, I can't remember now who did it, but it was a picture of Abraham Lincoln, and I tried to take a picture of it with my camera, and my camera just wouldn't work. I thought it's the batteries, changed the batteries, tried it again, still wouldn't work. So I never did get a picture of it, which annoyed me. Anyway, when I got back on the coach, 2 other people, their cameras packed up as well, trying to take this picture.
Interesting.
And I thought that was interesting. But more interesting, there's a book, I can't remember the title, and I've got it here somewhere, and it's on precipitated paintings, and it's got a lot of the Bang Sisters pictures and Campbell pictures.
There's, I think the author Ron Nagley.
That's it.
Yes.
I think so. But the thing about Abraham Lincoln was they took a photograph of the eyeball of Abraham Lincoln, very, very close eyeball, and gave it to a, don't ask me how to pronounce the name. Iridology. That's it.
Yeah.
And said, can you see anything in this eye? And the person did it and said, yes, they suffer from liver and various other complaints. And they did.
Gosh.
He did.
Abraham Lincoln did suffer from these illnesses. And if you get any painting being done by any artist, they never get the actual veins done in the eye.
No.
But to do that, I thought, and it was a precipitated painting, was incredible.
Yeah.
Really. And I'll give you one other little quick story. We were in America, I can't remember now. Anyway, a lady went to see someone doing precipitated paintings, and she had a little 6-inch piece of silk cloth, which she had to put in a box, put it on the table. The paints were on the floor underneath, and the medium did what they had to do. And afterwards, they opened the box, and on the silk thing was a face of somebody.
Several faces
on there.
Just
little faces, which she recognised. Anyway, when she showed me this at Eastbourne, when I come back to England, she flew over and I saw at Eastbourne. She said, look, this is a precipitated painting that was done for me. And on there was the picture of the man that I know very, very well, who used to come to all the ISF meetings, and he died rather suddenly. And I said, you've got a picture of Bernard there. And she looked at me in astonishment. She said, you know Bernard? She didn't know that I knew Bernard. And it was amazing. And this picture.
Very recognisable.
Very recognisable.
Yes. No.
I have had, when I do the portraits, and we've done them in churches and things, the recognition rate is approximately 95 to 96%, which I'm happy with. We did have one, we were doing an evening at a church in almost central London. I can't remember the name of it now. It was set in a house in its own grounds, but quite difficult to find. And I did this picture for a lady, and she didn't recognize it. Anyway, she was going over to Ireland. She decided to take the picture with her. She was going to visit relatives, and one of the relatives saw it and said, well, why have you got a picture of so-and-so with you? She died ages ago. And of course, we only went to this one church once a year for these evenings. And so the next year she was there telling us what it was and who it was.
It's good proof, isn't it? It's lovely. And you do some marvellous work. Keep it up. Keep it, please, too. Neil, your person you did your workshop with, was it Bill Forrester?
That's the name, yeah, thank you. I knew it was Bill, but his name slipped, yeah.
Yeah, I know Bill quite well. He's also a member of the Institute of Spiritualist
He's
Mediums.
a lovely, lovely man, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting stories.
And I can actually say that I did work with Coral Polge while she did the paintings, the drawings, and I did the clairvoyance. Yes. And that was a real privilege to actually do that with Coral. It was really wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah, so, she was a lovely lady as well. Thank you. That's all. I don't want to say any more. Don't want to take up any more time.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Bill. That was great. Yeah, that reminds me of Joy and I think some of you have seen this, 1976, and it was done by Coral Pulge, and that's my guide.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is, you notice around the ear, there's not so much hair. That's not me now, thinning hair. It's to signify clairaudience. I was supposed to develop clairaudience.
Oh, right.
I think you said, Myra, you said about guide painters, and I think for people that have been in spiritualism a while, I think it's a great thing to have paintings and drawings of their guide. And, if anybody gets a chance to sit with a psychic artist, I thoroughly recommend it. It can be very rewarding. Is there any more questions out there? Gary's got one. I'll just unmute you, Gary.
I'll go back and mute myself.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Gary, I think.
No, we can't hear you.
I can't hear him.
We can't hear you, Gary. Oh, he's going on to the other computer. That's all right.
Has anybody else got a question in the meantime?
Wait there, look. He's borrowed his daughter's one. That was magic.
My name is Tablet. Oh, yeah. Can you unmute this one?
Yeah, you are unmuted.
Can you hear me okay now?
Carry on, ask the question.
Yes, right. That's, I don't know if you can see it very well, that's my guide. He's called Atmos. I can't remember the name of the lady that drew him for me, but that was done a couple of years ago in Biggleswade. But what I wanted to ask Myra was the picture you showed earlier of all the people going up the staircase into heaven.
Yes.
A friend of mine that I work with, he said, like many years ago, when he was about, I think, 3 or 4, maybe a little bit older, but not much, he was in his grandparents' living room looking out of the window, just daydreaming, and he saw something exactly like that, without the cross part. But he said, I was just sitting there, all of a sudden I got this image of all these people ascending the staircase. He could actually see them walking up there, like it was some kind of a film or something. So he's never seen anything like that since. But yeah, I thought that reminded me of it when you showed that picture. Yeah,
they do show the same sort of things to different people, as to get their message across, I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously at that age he didn't realise what it was. He now realises what it was. So, yeah, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You know, Gary, I know you from somewhere, and I can't think where.
You might have seen me at the Spiritualist Church in Welling Garden. I'm not sure.
Oh, could be. You used to go there quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was in Gillian Holland's Circle, wasn't it? Online.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Gillian's Circle as well. Yeah. So perhaps that's where
I've seen you in that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Right. Anybody else want a question? Stephanie.
Hi. I thought that was really interesting, Myra. Amazing, some of the detail and the stories that went with it that you've mentioned. I just wanted to refer to the first angel you showed us, because I've actually seen that angel in a dream, but it was a much more detailed dream, where I'd actually felt like it's going to sound mad, but that I'd actually gone up to heaven to visit by astral travel sometimes. And I saw that face very clearly, along with lots of other faces that in my dream I felt like I'd recognised, but I'd not recognised anyone. There wasn't anybody on Earth, but everybody was like floating around because you couldn't see anyone's feet, but everyone just had white gowns and a really white light.
Yes.
So I didn't really remember it until I saw the face of the angel. So
yes, I can't find it at the moment. It's
it was the first one you said.
Yes, I know the one you mean. Yeah.
So,
Friend's angel.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do show themselves, and just, I mean, not on the spirit art thing because I just couldn't get it right. But you know, when the Twin Towers went down, and I tuned in, and I saw loads and loads of angels there, all taking the souls up. And I did try and do a painting of it, but I just couldn't get it right. But you know, they're around us all the time.
Yeah, really, really interesting subject. And the auragraphs I was particularly interested in because I wanted to understand them more.
Some people see auragraphs as almost like circles with a landscape in the circle, which is symbolic. To me, it's more like a symbol of the aura and what the person is interested in rather than the actual aura. Because the aura is just filled with colour and swirly and moving and what have you. You certainly don't have a tree growing out of your side or something like that.
No. And a few years ago I went to a mind, body, spirit, well, it might have been a lot of years ago actually, probably about 10, in Clophill, and there was somebody there who did aura photographs.
Yes.
And I really wanted it done. I was really keen to have it done, and I was quite excited about it. And then so I waited patiently in a queue, and it must have been a good half hour or so. And then I got to the front, and I said, "Oh, you know, it was my turn because I'd booked my slot." And then at the end of it, she said, "I'm really sorry, I don't take cards. I only take cash." So I was like really gutted. But she, for whatever reason, said, "That's okay. You can have this on me. And then maybe next time I'm in the area, you know, we can meet up then." And I said, "Well, if you're in the area doing another session, why don't you just come and stay with me instead of, you know, staying at a hotel? And then I will have returned the compliment in a way." So we swapped numbers and stuff, but our paths never crossed again. But she did my photograph, or a photograph, and basically it was so big, this aura. It was just lemon in like the shape of a giant egg with silver and purple at the top, but mainly yellow. And then she sort of translated what that meant, which is basically, she said, "You're very good at communicating, you're a people person, very psychic, and the spiritual stuff at the top." But yeah, it was fascinating. So I did realise that it was quite similar to the auragraphs that you do, because the similarities to the photographs and
there are differences.
Colours,
When you see the photographs, they tend to, if you like, concentrate on the more emotional levels of the person. When I'm doing auragraphs, I go into very deepest character. So it's a totally different level. And you can prove that by, if you go and get your photograph done, or a photograph, and you've been rushing around and you get there and you're all het up and everything, you'll get one colour.
Yeah.
You wait an hour, and after you've calmed down, you've had a cup of tea and you're a lot more relaxed, you'll get a totally different colour.
Right, okay.
Which just, to me, proves that it goes more on the emotional and the outer part of the aura than the deeper inner person.
Okay.
Which
thanks
again,
thanks for explaining the differences as well. Thank you very much. That's really interesting. Thank you.
Anybody else want to say anything? Oh,
Tracy.
Right, we're unmute.
Hello.
Hi.
I was only really going to say, it's not to do with portrait. It's to do with a picture my uncle's got. I mean, he can't see it now, being blind, but he got a picture from one of the drawings, colour pencil drawing. He got it from one of the fairs at the church. Somebody else bought it, and he went to go for it, and then they said to him, "This is more meant for you," and give it to him. But it adds new bits on it. It's like a scene of a Native American, like teepees and fire burning. But every time you look at the picture, something new's on the picture, and it keeps adding more. Every time you go to my uncle's house, there'd be something else on it. Since it's been going on for years.
I'd be taking photographs of it every time I visited, so that you've got a comparison line.
Yeah, I find it really fascinating.
Yeah,
I really like this picture.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate you can't see it anymore, but it's a really, really nice picture. I just find it really fascinating how it adds different things to it. I mean, I haven't been there for a while because of all this COVID stuff. I don't want to put him at risk, and because of my job, I'm sort of out all the time with people. Well, in the home I work at, so I wouldn't put him at risk. So I haven't seen it for a while, but it'd be quite fascinating when I next go there. So
definitely take photos.
Yeah, should do. Never thought of that.
Because then you can show it on here and show everyone.
Yeah, I'll get my sister. She goes down. I'll get her to take a picture of it.
Yeah, that would be good. I was going to ask you a question, Myra. Do you teach it on Zoom or do a circle on Zoom so we can all join?
I run a development circle for one of the local churches on Monday evenings on Zoom. I don't tend to advertise it because some of the people that come to it just want to keep it small. However, it is an open circle and anybody can come to it. The actual teaching on and doing workshops and seminars and stuff on sort of psychic and spirit art has tended to be before we all became Zoom people. And so consequently, I've done it at various churches in the southeast before we moved to Devon, and then of course ones in Devon. I also taught spirit and psychic awareness at two of the colleges in Devon, which was quite interesting. We did 3 years, courses which lasted a year each course in different levels of difficulty up to and by the time you got through the third, you knew quite a bit, but you were not necessarily a medium, because we didn't actually teach. It wasn't like a development circle where you can teach people about mediumship and seeing spirit and everything.
All right.
But yeah, I had the opportunity a long time ago at Watford Church. Did I go into the healing side of things or the teaching side of things? And I was working full time and had other commitments at the time with children and animals and how one does. And I decided to go into the teaching side. And so things have developed from there, and we've done teaching for many, many years now, as well as the ordinary mediumships, clairvoyance and taking services and things. Last year, just before Christmas, my book on spiritualism and mediumship was published, which unfortunately I haven't been able to get onto Amazon yet because I'm not techno minded, and you've got so many technical things you've got to jump through to get it onto Amazon that I just gave up in the end. But I've got a friend who is very good at this sort of thing, and after Christmas I'm going to try and get it on there with his help. So yeah, we've been teaching a long time.
Excellent.
And I know that Bill and Mary will remember the healers and people at Watford Church, because you took the inaugural service, I believe, at the new building in Escourt Road. I was there. I saw you. So,
that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Right. Does anybody else want to say anything before we close?
Well, I'm just glad you found it of interest.
Yeah, thank you very much, Myra.
Yeah.
Great, really great.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the things about what we do is it's not just about a particular thing, is it? There's so many aspects of all this mediumship and spiritualism.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what makes it so fascinating, really. And when you talk about precipitated art, it's difficult to come to grips with it now, but a lot of this phenomenon was so common years ago. People experiencing stuff that people can only read about now, which is a shame in a way.
It's one of the things nowadays that a lot of churches, they will come and they say, well, the medium will now demonstrate their mediumship. And I'm thinking, yes, what kind of mediumship? It was, so when I'm saying to anybody, or because I host services for the local church on Zoom, and it always comes down, as the Institute of Spiritualist Mediums talk, call it spirit communication. There can be no
I like that.
muddling up then, because somebody's mediumship could be physical manifestation, which would be wonderful, but I don't think you'd get that in a divine service somehow.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, often because in the SNU churches, you're not really supposed to do trance addresses, but I think a lot of mediums just cover it up. But I mean, sometimes some of the trance addresses are the best of the lot. So,
well, I know I let my guide come through nowadays, and I do the trance, whatever type of church it is. And
I think we've got.
I get asked back, so it can't be.
I think we've got to broaden what we do and not limit ourselves, and not let ourselves be limited by other people's rules sometimes.
I mean, I know Tony Bain, he was a great teacher, and he was in charge, I believe, of the East of England teaching program for the SNU. But he said on numerous occasions, well, I believe in reincarnation, the SNU doesn't, and I'm happy to serve whatever church, whether it's got crosses up or not. And I have noticed since, some years ago, the SNU are now having Christian spiritualist churches affiliated to them.
Yeah, that's right.
Welwyn Garden City being one of them.
Yeah, I think they're realising that they're not attracting a wide enough audience if they limit what they do, because the potential of mediumship and all the different forms of spiritualism, there's a lot more there than just simplistic message.
I asked once if I could do their courses, and they said yes, you can do them, but you won't be accredited for doing them because you're president of a Christian spiritualist church.
Oh, right.
And so I thought, well, my money can go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't blame.